Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Ragnarok, and today we will be discussing the V8.2 update details. Let's get into it. In this update, we can find ourselves with 3 new uniforms and a legendary battle, as well with some other game fixes and improvements. Starting with Thor, we can see, comparing him to the Herald Thor uniform, that he has gotten many small buffs. His chain hit damage is 5% more than his old one. He has 10% more basic damage reduction, and the skill damage and increased bonus damage is totally new. His tier 3 has remained exactly the same. For his passives, he has a new 35 ignore dodge, and his lightning damage has been buffed by 5%. As for his skills, the cooldowns of 1, 4, and 5 have been changed. The third skill has been added a decreased lightning resistance. The rest remains the same. The fourth skill, recovery, has gone up by 5%. His frenzy buff has also gone up by 5%. And the accumulation that used to be on the fourth skill is now on the fifth skill, and the lightning resistance that used to be on the fifth skill is now on the fourth skill. As for his accumulation, it has gone from 0.6% to 0.8%. Moving on now to Thor Jane Foster, we can see that she has had a complete rework of her 5 skills and her passives. For example, she now has a passive that applies to only allies with shock abilities of 30% dodge rate and 40% lightning damage. So it applies to Thor, Beta Ray Bill, etc. The problem with this passive is that it's very similar to Ancient One's, although Ancient One actually adds all resistances, which may be important to Thor, and Ancient One also has the ability of a leadership, whilst Jane Foster doesn't. So her support doesn't seem that great. Let's hope that she can actually be the main dealer herself. As for her skills, she has some really long cooldowns on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th skill, so we'll have to wait and see how she plays out. She does have a 1% accumulation on the 3rd, but it's really hard to tell if the character will be good only by the patch notes, so we'll have to wait and see. Moving on to the 3rd and final uniform of this update, we find Valkyrie, who has also had some small incremental buffs. Firstly, she now has guaranteed dodge rate by 30%, which is new. Her increased skill damage and bonus damage has been bumped by 5%, and her Tier 2 passive, which was known to be one of the best support passives of the game, has been increased by 5% the increased damage to supervillain, as well as the ignore target dodge rate. As for her skills, her 3rd skill has lost the guard hit, but has gained a new heal by 15%, and her accumulation has moved from 1% to 1.1%. The 4th skill now has silence, which could be very good for ABX, and the 4th skill has also gained the buff that she used to have on the 5th skill, which now remains completely empty. Moving on to Thor Jane Foster's Tier 3, this is her animation. She dashes around with Mjolnir, and as for the skill itself, Pure Might, she gets a 70% proc for one attack, and an 80% chance to penetrate super armor, barrier, shield, all damage, immunity, and invincibility, as well as her getting invincibility. Now let's check the Angela, Scourge, and Destroyer Potential Awakening and Transcendence. These 3 have gotten the Elsa treatment of just no uniform and slapping in an awakening skill. At least this group isn't as random, because they have been in a group together called the Guardians of the Galaxy, so at least it's not a random group of heroes, but it's still really underwhelming because these will fill up spaces for the story mode fragment farming, and they really don't add anything to the roster. On top of it, the awakening skill as such is so lame. It's just 2 slashes and a beam from Destroyer. Pretty short. Yeah. Now checking out Thor tier 4 skill. It looks pretty good. He has an increased buff effect by 10% and an all element damage buff of 50%, which basically translates to a 50% lightning damage. Remember that this is skill level 1, so once we equip a striker to him, these numbers may be buffed. Moving on to the legendary battle, newer players will be able to get a 6-star Thor Jane Foster, which is good for the newcomers. The extreme pack itself seems pretty underwhelming. It has a CTP of Greed, which I don't think anybody asked for this. And the new thing about this legendary battle is that it includes the artifact from Thor, which we'll check out later on. I don't think that this legendary battle is very worth it, but it could be good to getting the artifact and the other rewards. As for this offer, please don't buy it, skip it directly. Tier 2 Thor is very easy to get, it's not worth 1,500 crystals. These are the 3 stages from the legendary battle. Here is Gorr, who seems to be getting the same treatment as M'Baku from the Black Panther legendary battle, Talos from the Captain Marvel legendary battle, and most recently the Death Dealer from the Shang-Chi legendary battle. And then these are the rewards for the normal and extreme. The normal are free and they're very good. Remember, it's free. And then the extreme ones seems like a so-so offer. It has some good things. It had some bad things like the CTP of Greed. On a Judgment heavy update, they really should have gone for Judgment, but whatever. The rankings in Multiverse Invasion. What is this? Now they will get your 10 scores every single day, add them up together, and put them on a ranking. When the day finishes, you will get gold depending on where you're placed on that ranking. So this is just more free gold for the things that we were already doing. They could have reduced the times, but they've decided to do this. Okay. Moving on to the giant boss rate improvements. They have added a tip section to the Dormammu fight. They've changed how the book drops. Now every single book will be able to drop every single day, but there will be one book highlighted. We don't know what the odds will be for the other books, but probably they will be low in comparison to the chance up book. Additionally, the Dormammu fight now will last 10 minutes because before you had to defeat him before the 9:54 minute mark because of his death animation. Now he will be dead as long as you kill him. They've changed that. They've also improved the Mindless One area being stuck in it, so let's see how that goes. And finally, the Dormammu fight has been balanced. He will not remove all the buffs, which is amazing. Now we don't have to switch characters to get back our passive buffs, but they've increased his damage by a small margin. They've also added 16 new shield archive collections, which seems good. This is a passive farm. You just get them every now and then. They've also made the UI for the shield archive a bit better. They've grouped up the buffs that you get, the instinct buffs that you get from here, so you can see your progress. And they've also made more accessible to know which items drop in which stages. So now you will be able to see the items that drop per stage. Getting on to the final parts of this update, we find the new artifacts. Thor's seems pretty good, especially with the Jane Foster and or Ancient One buffs, because they add lightning resist, which is part of his artifact. He gets 30% of lightning damage based off the lightning resist. So the more lightning resist he has, the more lightning damage he will get from the artifact, additional to the basic damage dealt to supervillain faction. Moving on to the final trio of artifacts, We find Angela's and Scourge's to be just a flat all attack, and Destroyer's to be a heal based off his damage reflected, his total instinct, and it caps out at 5% every second. This could make Destroyer make a comeback at the PvP scenery with the stats increase from his Transcendent skill. Finally, we find here the Future Pass rewards. These are the special tokens for the new update. This one's for the Legendary Battle, this one will be for the token shop in a few weeks, and then these two are the paywalls. I have to say that Gorr getting an icon could mean that he will eventually be a playable character, because there's not a single icon with a character that can't be played in the game. So this is a good sign for those who hoped to see Gorr in the game. A new uniform collection has been added. It gives out 1 million gold. You can now check the stats of Brilliant and Mighty CTPs on the Marvel Universe tag. You can now check all of the changed skills in the uniform list. Infinity Ultron will now not remove your buffs when he enters optimization phase, so now you won't have to change characters every single time he does that. And finally, to end these patch notes on a happy note, we can check the new Dimension Rift rewards, which have been incredibly buffed. Now, once you finish the daily progress of a rift, once you will get 350 cubes, and the second time you will get 400 cubes. This is 750 more cubes added to the ones that you farmed in the rift. So if you're able to complete the progress of 2 rifts, we're counting the 750 plus the additionals. This makes the change of the cubes to dimension rifts 100% better than they used to be in the GBR. And so it has ended. We've seen the whole patch notes. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for reaching the end of the video. I'll see you on the next one.